And the good news is that students, if you were mentoring last year, which all of you were, and you were out of the area, I think last year students were very uncomfortable with video calls and talking on the phone. And so hopefully you've seen that as an improvement in their skills over this past at least 6 months, is that I think they're a lot more comfortable interacting with people via Zoom and other methods of distance communication. So that's a pro I've seen with us, a lot of our students. So with this meeting, I wanted to just share a little bit about the goals of these career coach meetings, because I think it's really important to reiterate the value of all of us coming together. And I know that you all have a lot of stuff going on, so I just really appreciate you being here. And my goal is to have these meetings once per quarter, and really it's to, you know, update you all on programs, check in to see how things are going, because sometimes that can be kind of hard with all of us, you know, doing our own thing. So just to get feedback about the program. And then lastly, my goal is really to share resources too, to help equip you to be a more effective mentor, and then just to know what's happening on campus. So that's what Travis, our career counselor for the College of Business, is here today, just to talk about how Career Services is pivoting to meet students' needs and to do virtual recruiting while we are kind of managing this pandemic. So our agenda today is to reflect on last year for a couple of minutes, we'll do some small breakout rooms and get to know one another. And then we are going to just do some programmatic updates. I have an updated mentor handbook that I just want to review a couple of pieces with you all. And then lastly, we'll pass over to Travis to share some just exciting things that Career Services is doing and some things that you might want to refer your students to once you're paired with them. Does that sound good? Yes, okay. Awesome, thank you all. So last year we had 56 mentors in the career coaching program, and we're able to serve 68 students. And I think when I think about how high touch those relationships are and how much the impact you're able to make, I was really, really excited about that number. And I'm hoping to grow the program to serve 80 students this next year. I want to grow sustainably, but I am always looking for new career coaches. So I'll be doing some outreach and onboarding new career coaches at the beginning of September. So this last year was our first year of the career coaching program as it is now. I know a lot of you are from the Young Alumni Mentoring Program, and a couple of you are from the Executive Partner Program, which Kathy coordinated for a number of years. So thank you, huge thank you to Kathy. And so, you know, we're continuing to evolve as the career coaching program, and I always welcome your feedback, and I'm really excited to kind of see where we're headed. So I thought it'd be kind of fun for us to break out into small rooms just so that you could meet one another and then share some wins and some challenges of last year. So that could be challenges that are programmatic or how things were structured, or challenges interpersonally with students that you were working with, and then maybe some highlights of your mentoring last year. Does that sound good? Okay, so I'm going to share just like some highlights, or if there's pieces of feedback that you think would be really important to share with the team or with me.
I'm happy to share what Chelsea and I talked about.
Yeah.
You know, it went by so fast. But one of the things that we were talking about as we've all gotten used to, and I'm Andrea, by the way, everyone, nice to meet you. I'm an alumni. Nice to see you, Kathy. So Chelsea and I were talking about how it truly, with everybody getting used to the technology, I was not successful, and I am local, but I did meet students on campus. I was not successful in utilizing the technology to set up video calls after we went to this platform, but at the same time, we didn't need it because I was in person. And I think even the technology, even to be able to say, hey, do we have to use the Cal Poly technology, or do you just say, I mean, everybody's got an iPhone, can you FaceTime or Zoom or something else? And so it was not an obstacle, but the technology was not something that myself or the students that I mentored used.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone actually use Cal Poly Career Connections after that initial introduction to connect with their mentee?
I did use it to set up initial meetings and to kind of that initial tracking, but then we lost that.
Yeah, we We did a couple of messaging back and forth, and then I said, it's just easier to go direct. So we went directly to text or email. I never tried to use the technology.
Yep, I see a lot of head nods. Yeah, I think that was pretty clear consensus among the mentors and the mentees was it's one more platform to log into. It's kind of, and also, you know, you want that close personal relationship to develop naturally. And so I think it just makes sense to be able to share email or another form of communication that you use more frequently. I'm definitely going to continue to use to encourage mentors and mentees to kind of set their own communication norms for how they want to be in touch. I think that I'm 100% okay. One of the things I'll be doing this upcoming year is just sending out quarterly surveys so that I know how often you're meeting, if you are still in touch with your mentees, because I think that the reality is I'm just not going to be able to use the program to track that. And so I think I'm just going to rely on you all just to check in every 3 months and let me know, were you able to connect? How often were you able to connect? Just so I can keep a pulse on what's happening on your end. Yeah. Any other things you discuss in your small groups that you want to share?
I know that I'm personally really excited to mentor students, and I'm just having a hard time connecting with any. So to be matched up with someone. So I'll go on the alumni portal again, or just kind of check all the tools and make sure that, you know, everything's complete. I just, you know, I'm out here ready to help someone, but the connections aren't happening.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads nicely into some programmatic updates, because that was one piece of feedback. So Executive Partner Program was this ongoing matching, and Kathy and the student board did a really amazing job of kind of continuously onboarding mentors and continuously onboarding students. And as part of kind of the transition, especially because of the administrative work that requires, I changed it to a one-time match in the fall with a more structured commitment of 6 months. And I think the reality is that just doesn't work for mentors, that just doesn't work for students. And so we'd have mentors that wanted to join the program in February, and I'd have to say, hey, wait 6 months to get involved. And I don't think that's a great way of engaging people with the program. And same for students who really would need help in November, and like, well, we just missed this window. So one of the things that we'll be doing is just doing a more ongoing pairing. And so I really will be, like I mentioned, kind of relying on you all to let me know if a match doesn't kind of go anywhere, or if you want to take on more students. And we'll kind of leave, I'm going to do a structured recruitment for students every quarter instead of just once per year. I think that'll be a lot more student friendly as well, being that students also have different recruiting timelines and things like that. And then on the other side of that, I also am not requiring a 6-month commitment. The reality, I think, is that those of you that are still in contact with your students will probably be in contact for much longer than 6 months. And those that lost touch after the first month, you know, that was kind of irrelevant anyways. And so that student responsiveness has always been kind of a challenge. And so I am requesting that students and mentors meet for at least 3 months. But if you're having a student that's non-responsive, or you're having a student that, you know, has not been, you know, proactive and as invested as you are, then we're going to, you know, I guess check in with that student, remove them from the program if they're not interested in participating, and then pair you with somebody else that really wants to get the most out of the program. So those are kind of some of the biggest updates that we'll be making. And I'm really eliciting the help of some of our student assistants to kind of help with that ongoing administrative stuff that goes into making sure that you all are in productive and, you know, and just like valuable mentoring relationships for both you and for the student. And then the last big update was just, I kind of mentioned this briefly, was the quarterly check-in surveys. So I am going to do this for both students and for mentors. The reality is that mentors are just more responsive. And so I think that is going to be something I'll be sending those out just to check in to see how your mentees or mentee is doing, and, you know, if you are interested or available to be paired with somebody else. All right. Any questions about any of that?
I do have a little story, Mallory.
Yes, I'd love to hear it.
Maybe people would be interested. So a student, let's see, a few months back from, she was actually a math and science student in the healthcare area, posed a question on Career Connections about the fact that she was interested in multiple fields.
Mhm.
And is that a bad thing, she said, and what should I do? And I answered her back and I just said, oh my gosh, no, that's not a bad thing to do. And if, you know, if there's anything that I can do to help, I mentored some business students, and so please reach out. Well, she immediately reached out, and now I have a connection. So I'm continuing to mentor her. And she sent me actually to a freshman business student, which I added to my list as well, she went to high school with.
Nice.
So just by answering the question and offering to help her, there was another connection. So it's been working out great. And she's an outstanding student. She goes to see Jade Travis, and her name is Christy Leung. So if you mention that to Jade, she'll jump up and down because she already wants her to speak to some of her other students. She's a great girl. So
that's awesome, Kathy. Yeah, so that kind of speaks to, there's a lot happening on the Career Connections platform as a whole, outside of the formal program. And so it is really cool, especially if you find that, you know, maybe you have one mentee that you're working with longer term, but you want to be available for those other students that might not be part of the formal program. That's a really great example of that. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so I want to show you all really briefly the Mentor Handbook. So this is something we've had in the past, and I think it's just a really valuable way for you to just refer to some resources. I think one thing I've learned in my first year of doing this program last year is that students don't really know how to be mentees. And I think this is a continual challenge. And one of the things I'm building out is just a little bit more robust of a training program for students as they get onboarded into the career coaching program, just so they know how to set goals, how to make the most of their time with you all, and just also just be respectful of the time that they, you know, meet with you. So but I also wanted to give you all tools as mentors, just in case your students weren't as prepared or didn't know necessarily what their career goals were. So I just created this mentor handbook, and this will be hosted in Career Connections under the resource tab. So I'll show you all where that will live. And I'm making a similar one, but for students with a student focus. And we have some logistics. A lot of this you know, but I wanted to show you. I'm breezing through it so that you can go through this if you want to revisit it. But I built out your role as a mentor, and one thing I really wanted to highlight was the importance of the first meeting. And I think that, you know, we see a really big drop off of students who make that first call and maybe never follow up from there. And so I think really as mentors, knowing and understanding that your student might not know what to ask or what this relationship is supposed to look like, and you really have the power to set the tone and create that comfortability in that relationship, that the student can be okay not necessarily knowing exactly what they want to do, or be okay not necessarily knowing exactly how this is supposed to work, but just taking that time to get to know them and help set some expectations. You know, what is a really great strategy in your first meeting is to set expectations and norms about how you will be communicating, how often you want to connect or meet, how you will, you know, do you prefer to be contacted via text, via email, and then help the student set some goals for the relationship. And I included a contract, and this is similar to what we've used in Executive Partner Program and Young Alumni Mentoring Program, but I'm going to make a fillable version of this and attach that to the resource page as well, so that you have it for each individual student if you mentor more than one. And this really allows you, if you are, you know, more free-flowing and you're comfortable having these conversations, a little unstructured, that's great. But if you want to be able to work through something specific with the student so that you're both on the same page, please feel free to use this contract or something similar to it so that you can really set those expectations. So you can, you know, discuss how you want to meet, when and, you know, what times you really prefer to set up your meetings, and some mentee goals. So what are the things that they most want to get out of their time meeting with you? What are some of their own career goals? as well as expectations for the mentoring relationship. So this is really where you have the opportunity to set some, communication standards. So if they're going to reschedule, make sure they do it, within a certain period of time. If you want them to come prepared with specific questions or give them homework to work on outside of your meetings, those types of things you can kind of talk about maybe how you normally like to structure those mentoring calls. And then also, I noticed too, when I mentioned some students don't know how to be mentees, I think some students don't even know maybe what types of topics they are even interested in covering with you. So I outlined some of those areas here. And then I also went into more depth in the role as a mentor section, where you can kind of, within each of these areas, there's some ideas for topics that you can cover with your student. If you don't feel entirely confident addressing every single one of these topics, that is 100% okay. That's what Travis and I are here for as well, and there's lots of other resources. But this can kind of help brainstorm. We'll have this on the student handbook as well. So this can also help you brainstorm maybe some types of things that your student really is interested in talking about. Lastly, I think the biggest thing, as we all know in the mentoring relationship, is really the foundation of the relationship. And that might be helping the student ask questions that they don't know to ask. You all have such great experience navigating career changes and the transition from college to career. And so kind of helping prompt those students to think about some big picture questions, which is, what are you excited about? What do you typically like to read? What are some interest areas outside of just obtaining this first job out of college? So I think you all offer that wisdom and experience of knowing that career is not linear. And this is something that we're always trying to share with students as career counselors. But, we included some questions that you can ask just to help get the student thinking about all the different career possibilities that they might be interested in. Any questions about this piece here? Okay, lovely. I also addressed the mentoring challenges I want to explicitly talk about in this meeting, just because I saw all of them last year. So the first is knowing when to refer. I had a really great example of this last year. A mentor was paired with a transfer student that was, had multiple different life roles that she was kind of obligated to. So she was caring for her parents, she was also working, and then trying to balance this transition to a brand new university and a new course load and all those things. So I had a really great conversation with that mentor about what are some things that are in the scope of the mentor's experience that she felt really confident helping the student with. And then we also brainstormed some referrals in areas that might be really beneficial to put the student in contact with. So just know that these issues, especially mental health concerns, come up a lot in college, and you are by no means expected to be a counselor. Please loop me in, or if you don't feel comfortable disclosing because of confidentiality, you can always just ask for, what types of mental health resources are there available for students, and I can send you a number of ways that we typically refer students on campus. A second is poor attendance or participation, and I think this is something that we continue to see year in and year out, and I think setting those clear expectations from the beginning of your meetings will really help. And then also loop me in if a student is no longer responding with the more fluid structure of the program going into this next year. I think it'll be really beneficial. We can always find other resources for that student if they aren't interested in that ongoing mentoring relationship, and then pair you with someone that really wants to get something out of this program, like I mentioned. And then the last piece is mismatches. And this is the challenge of using like an algorithm in Career Connections to match you. And I do my best to try to adjust those based on what I know about your background or experience or that student. But sometimes you just might not feel like you are the best match for that student, whether it's personality, professional background, or maybe their own career goals. You just think they might benefit more from somebody in a different area or field. So please loop me in if you feel like that's the case. We can reassign you, find a better fit. That's just ideally, mentoring relationships happen spontaneously. You meet someone and you hit it off, and then it goes from there. But we know college students don't interact with a lot of professionals, and so I think this really helps close that gap. But the reality is that there just will be poor matches at times. So please loop me in, and we can readjust based on what you both need. Okay, so that's it for the handbook. Like I mentioned, you'll be able to access that as you wish. And there's other great content in there, resources for you to refer students to, other things like that. So feel free to check that out whenever you have a chance. And from there, I'm going to pass it over to Travis. So he is visiting from Career Services, and they've really done a ton of work in helping meet students' needs in totally different ways than we have before. So I wanted to pass it over to him to give him a chance to share kind of what they've been up to and resources that you might be interested in sharing with students.
Awesome. Thanks, Mal. I'll start by kind of introducing myself. I know some of you, but I know for many others, this is your first time interacting with me. So I'll start by saying hello. My name is Travis Renaud. I serve, as Mallory said, as my job title is the longest title in the world. It's College Specialist Career Counselor for the Orfalea College of Business, which is just a lot of words, meaning that I get to serve our business students, our OCOB students, from their sophomore year until alumni. So I just don't work with our first year students. We have a dedicated team of freshman focus counselors that work with them. I think it's important to distinguish how my role with Mallory complements and also differs. So typically how I explain that is we are both serving students in the College of Business, but my role is primarily focused, and probably at least 60% of my time is focused on the counseling aspect. So that means that students schedule appointments with me, and I work with them on a variety of career readiness tools. So I'm not a mental health counselor, although often the conversation veers into that. But I usually say, like, any of those conversations that you have with your mentees that are really robust and fun and enjoyable around resumes and interviewing and networking, if you love those, you would love my job. If conversations about cover letters and career fairs and salary negotiation are ones you hate, then you'd hate my job, because I do those also every day. So just a lot of coaching with students. And like I said, that's about 60% of my job. The other 40% is kind of divvied up in terms of helping campus-wide career initiatives. So any of our career fairs that serve all students, fall, winter, spring, general career fairs, and then large department-wide ones, construction management, architecture, and beyond. I work with our team to collaborate and facilitate those career fairs. I also help with some educational initiatives within Career Services by teaching some classes around career foundation for the College of Business. And then lastly, a small portion of my role is connecting with employers who are specifically looking to recruit OCOB students, but that probably is the biggest bridge to my collaboration with Mallory. So if I do have an employer that's looking to start a relationship within Cal Poly or Orfalea, I will facilitate that conversation and then typically pass them off to Mallory and help build that. But Mallory and I also collaborate a lot just because we're serving the same students. So that's my role. I'm just down the hill from the business building in building 124, but I'm up and down that hill 100 times a day. So that's what it looks like. But I wanted to highlight, like Mallory said, a couple things that I think can help you have more robust and intentional conversations with your mentees in the coming quarters. So Mal, if you would love to serve as my Vanna and highlight a couple things on our website. So I highly encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to bookmark this page. This is just careerservices.calpoly.edu. This is our website, and we throw on about 1 million cool tools, workshop resources on here every quarter. So there's a couple of areas I want to focus on. The first is the yellow box that says Student Resource Toolkit. Look at that, beautiful. And here is tons and tons, if you haven't already, of great tools to review. We break this up in terms of main topics. So resume, cover letter, interviewing, internship search, graduate school. Those are heavy areas that a lot of first, second, and even third year students need some assistance in. So I don't want this to be like a tool where you just direct them to this and say, hey, read this information. They're not going to do that. We know that. But there's cool handouts that you can kind of go through with them. And if you feel like you have a really tough question that's asked of them about like, hey, is this, how I should be titling it on my resume, then that's a great tool to be like, hey, let's check out what Career Services is recommending. We can look at this handout together. So know that those tools are always there for you and that your students or your mentees should be aware of those. So that's the Student Resource Toolkit. The next thing that's new to our website, off on the opposite side, is our virtual workshops and resources. We put this together in late spring. So myself and my team of counselors went ahead and recorded our main topics and services. So whether that's how to build out your LinkedIn, how to create an elevator pitch, how to negotiate an offer, we recorded Zoom presentations of those. I'm gonna be real honest, they're pretty boring, because who wants to watch a video of me talking for 20 minutes on cover letters? But they're there, and if a student is panicking and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and they can't reach out to you or me about a cover letter, like there's that video that they can watch and give them some handy tips. So that's there and it's helpful, and I think in this virtual world it's nice to know that it's there. But the other thing on this website, it's kind of hidden. Luckily, Mallory knows where it's at to direct us to, but we've put together this really cool resource that we're continuing to update daily in terms of new information, specifically around recruitment practices in this new era of COVID-19. So one thing you'll probably hear from your mentees is micro internships, gig internships, or virtual internships. They all are essentially the same thing, but we're seeing these short-term, sometimes over the summer, but sometimes even over the academic year, virtual opportunities that companies are offering. And we've kind of created a dedicated place for those students to find those. So if you haven't heard of Parker Dewey or other companies similar to Parker Dewey who are kind of hosting these 2-week to 4-week micro internships, that's a great opportunity for students to gain some hands-on experience doing kind of cross-functional work for industries across all areas, and it's a great internship opportunity. So all that stuff, remote gigs, all that is on this page, and just know that we update that pretty regularly. So that's there. The last thing I wanted to highlight that's on our website is just below that tab, which is our attend online events. It's just going to link to our calendar. What's important for you to please share to your mentees is we're still moving forward with a full menu of events in fall. So we will still hold live synchronous workshops, and they will be able to see those on our calendar. We also are still planning all of our main or kind of seminal career recruitment or fairs. So fall career fair will still be happening, and then our Orphala clubs, including CPAC, our accounting club, our finance club, and others are still planning their recruiting events. So we try to put those on this calendar so that you and your mentees know when to look out for those. So that's another handy tool on the website. I'm going to pause because I've been talking a lot, kind of quickly, and allow, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Quick note too, I included those dates for fall career fair and fall recruiting events in the mentor handbook. We'll also include in the student one, but just so you could refer back to it, because some of them are career services hosted, some are club hosted. So we'll definitely, you could use that, and I'll update it as other things are solidified throughout the quarter too.
I'll also say that we can chat about this as a group if you all, if any or all have questions around how recruitment has changed in this current pandemic. One thing I shared with the other group earlier in the week when we met was something that is new for us is we've now got a pretty large kind of focus group completed in terms of chatting with employers over the last 5 months. And one of the consensus is that employers, as we move into fall recruitment, do want to see students indicate on their resume what happened, air quote, what happened for summer. So what that means is if they had an internship secured but lost that due to the company canceling that internship, if that internship went fully remote and was shortened, or if a student chose to delay an internship and instead do virtual classes or online certifications, anything that should be displayed on your resume. So what I mean by that is if a student had interviewed and gone through the competitive process to do a supply chain management internship with Stryker and that was canceled, they shouldn't leave that off of their resume. They should dedicate a space on there and indicate with the name of the company, the location, and the intended date of when they would have completed that, with 1 or 2 bullets explaining what the goal of that internship would have been. So due to COVID-19, internship was canceled, but was hired to complete a 10-week supply chain management internship with Stryker in their San Diego office. So that's a new thing, and we ask your help in disseminating that information to your mentees so that they are what's the right word, encouraged and kind of know the value of putting that on their resume. So that's one update I wanted to share. Again, any questions? I would happily answer.
When you say that the normal like kind of career fair events are happening and like the ones sponsored by clubs, are they taking more of a virtual approach, or will there be some form of in-person but like smaller scale COVID compliant one?
Yeah, good question. As far as I know, at least I can speak confidently in terms of career services events. So that would be our fall career fair. That will be fully virtual. And my conversations with our finance club and our accounting club are also moving ahead with fully virtual. It's going to be nice because all those clubs have had the opportunity to participate in career fairs through our office during the spring that were virtual. So that's been an opportunity for us to kind of work out some of the kinks. It will look slightly different because our event will host, we expect, hundreds of employers. These smaller individual club events will probably sit around 20 to 30 firms. But the goal is that each company has its own unique Zoom link, and that students will enter a room similar to what we're in now that will have a rep, and then that rep will place them into breakout rooms with recruiters. So far it's worked well. But we'll see. It might look a little different for each individual club. But yeah, to answer your question more succinctly, they will all be virtual.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? I'll also highlight where one strength that has come out of this area, or unexpected positive element, is that we have found that we are able to engage much more employers that historically we just would not have been able to welcome to Cal Poly because of the location. So our office, I know Orfila as well, are going to be continuing to host virtual events with employers that are, for lack of a professional term, like pretty kick-ass. And so what I mean by that is we have an upcoming event, even just through Career Services, where we have recruiters from companies that we have never had come to Cal Poly before. And that's been a great kind of realization of this moment, is these people are working from home. It's really easy for them to log into a Zoom account. So know that those will continue to happen in fall. And please encourage your mentees to utilize that, right? If you want to work for McKinsey, we have recruiters coming to virtual events, and they would have never come to those events in person 6 months ago. So now is the time to start building those network connections. So that's just another thing to have on your radar if you have mentees interested in that kind of stuff.
I have a question.
Question away.
I wondered if, the students, okay, so old way of career fair, or call it normal way of career fair, you walk up to a recruiter, you get invited to an interview, maybe, very nerve-wracking. But going into a room, a Zoom room, to me would be much less nerve-wracking. Are students saying that it's much easier for them to quote unquote walk into this room? Are you finding that?
Yes, a little bit. I think they are not as intimidated. But I'm glad you brought that up, Kathy. That brings up a great area that I also beg for your help in, is I think we have finally got our Orfila students to understand, like, hey, like, please wear professional clothing. You don't wear your gym attire. Like, I think they get that, which is great. But what we have discovered is they are unaware of, like, I don't want to see posters of Taylor Swift behind you. I don't want to see your messy bed behind you. So what historically would have been your focus on preparing them professionally for that interaction, what a handshake would look like. We know the world of a handshake is gone. But now there's a new renewed focus on like, what is your virtual brand? Do you have like simple things like I have my first and last name as my header for Zoom. Sometimes students don't have that, or they have a virtual background, but it's like, you know, like the Raiders, which is like, I'm glad you're an Oakland Raiders fan, but that's not what we're here for. So having like really intentional and actual in-depth, what would consider like a common sense conversation about virtual brand is going to help them significantly, because as we hosted Spring Career Fair, there were simple things like, man, I wish this kid knew that I can see his messy closet and it's real distracting. So there are simple things like that I think, to answer your question, yes, they are more comfortable, but they are less aware of their surroundings. Great question. Other questions about recruitment? I can talk, obviously you can see at length about what that's looked like.
How about Terry's background? Would that be good?
Yeah, beautiful.
Terry's virtual background.
Yeah, totally. I love a good virtual background. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should show you all of my backgrounds. I have like,
From
I
your
work for
photos.
PepsiCo in the food division. So I've got like corporate America, like I'm standing in front of like a podium. I mean, I've got all the fun ones.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. All my brands.
I love it. Chelsea's got a great background. I see that. Yeah, 100%. A virtual background is actually a safe bet. If they're not a student, has the capability to clean their room for some unknown reason, then just tell them, please download a virtual background. But
yeah, my group, we're big fans of the virtual backgrounds, and yeah, it's fun. There's some that you can just find on the internet, you know, some great like Zoom room backgrounds, but then the latest that we've been doing is actually uploading an actual photo we've taken, and then it's kind of a talking point of, oh, where's that from, or whatever. So we're big fans of that, or at least the ones like me. I'm working in the middle of a common space, and you know, people have to go back and forth behind me, so the Zoom background helps to block that out. Yeah.
It's a great point. If you're working with a mentee who's naturally probably more of an introvert, pretty shy, then encourage them like, hey, do a fun background photo. It might help start a conversation that you would have normally been a little bit scared to jump lunch into. So yeah. Other questions? Carlos, it looked like you had a question.
Oh, no, I was just saying, for virtual backgrounds, a great place to get them as well as Canva.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my students have been pulling from Canva to just get their own or make their own through Canva. Totally. Good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what virtual recruitment is going to look like for fall. I typically, you know, share out with the mentors when I'm able to connect with you all that, like, please know that, and Kathy knows this, having utilized or planned our executive partner program for so long, like, I'm happy to kind of help if there are areas that you don't feel comfortable, if you feel like I just don't feel confident that I'm giving adequate support in terms of, you know, resumes. Because here's the value is your expertise in the world of business far outweighs mine, right? I've never done that. That's not my expertise. I can tell you the ins and outs of every service line of the world of accounting, but if you put me in Deloitte, I would literally not know what to do. So your expertise is much needed. But I also am more than happy to kind of help you if they're like, I actually don't know if I should be telling my mentee to put an objective on their resume. Like, that's something I can happily talk to you about. And also, I know what Kathy and others, I know Andrea's not here anymore, but I've worked with her too. If you would like to have your mentees meet with me and just kind of have it be like, hey, get to know Travis, I'm happy to do that as well. My job is to support your mentees. That's my 9 to 5, 8 to 5 probably. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like Travis and even, you know, the career peer advisors, we offer really complementary things that you offer. And so I think there are so many ways that we all can kind of come together to support a specific student. So definitely reach out. Travis's email is in the handbook. So I hope that's okay, Travis. You have direct access to him if you need to. Okay, nice. Thank you so much. I find it's just always good for a little refresher, even if you're a recent alumni, it's good for a little refresher of the resources and the tools that are available for students so that you can refer them well and appropriately. So one thing I want to touch base about really quickly was our next steps and an action item for you all. So one important thing, I'm going to be doing some student outreach. I know when I originally communicated, I was going to try to match earlier than our school year, but students actually just found out this Tuesday, right, Travis, I want to say, what the plan for fall quarter was. So I pushed back our student outreach just a little bit because I think students are really distracted by the actual academic piece. So I'm queuing up an email to go out at the beginning of September. So I'm hoping to match you all again as they roll in. So I'm looking to match by the time that school starts, which is September 14th. So before that, I'm actually going to share my screen again and show you all, in case you're a little rusty in the Career Connections space, which is totally fine. I encourage you all to log back in. And again, under the Programs tab, when you're in Career Connections, you'll see our program here, and I just want to show you where that resource tab is. So when you click in on Career Coaching Program, you'll see resources here. And that's where you'll find the mentor handbook. So there's student-facing resources and then there's mentor-facing resources, or both. So my goal is to build this out a lot more so that you have access to some of those tools that are on Career Services website, so that you can, have an easy landing place where you can send your student to say, oh, there's a resume guide there too. So I'll be working on building that out over the next couple of weeks. And then your action item. So if you could do this by next Friday, August 21st, I will also follow up with an email to you all so that you have instructions to do this as well. So I need you to close out any mentees that you are no longer working with. So if you're still meeting regularly with a student and you want them to be kind of considered one of your formal pairings through the program, then leave them be. They can still be paired with you, but I want to know how many mentees you have space to take. And that will be really helpful if I know which students are no longer really participating in the program. So again, remember this envelope is like your mentoring hub. And this is just my dummy mentor account. So there's not a lot happening here, but you'll see for any students, for those of you that mentor multiple students or use, the other aspects of the Career Connections platform, you might have a lot of messages here. But all of your formal mentees are labeled ongoing. So that's a little bit confusing because you're not really sure what part of what the program is. So that's what that means, is when it's ongoing, it's part of the career coaching program. And if you are no longer in contact with that student, you can just click this little three dot drop down, and you'll click Archive, Close the Conversation. And then I get an email automatically saying this mentor, this mentee are done, and that way I kind of know I can remove the student from the actual program in the platform. Do you have any questions about that piece? No? Okay. Pretty straightforward. Again, I'll include a little link that has instructions just in case you want to revisit that. So your mentoring hub is where you can manage all of your mentee relationships. And then also, as a reminder, you can indicate whether or not you want to be available to schedule online, or if you prefer to not link your availability. So all of that is under my preferences. So you can link, your calendar. So just make sure, especially before you get paired with your student, that some of that stuff is up to date, so that a student can't go in and just book an appointment during a time that you really aren't able to meet. A little bit of housekeeping. Okay, so that's all in terms of action items on your end. And I'm going to look to connect, I really love to connect at the end of fall so that we can kind of touch base about how the quarter went, if that sounds all right. And I think, I always want to bring in at least some sort of resource for you all that could be helpful in your mentoring. Are there any specific topics that maybe after the last year you wish that you were really a little bit more well-equipped in, that maybe we can talk about at our fall check-in meeting?
I have one.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Brittany. I'm a Cal Poly alum. I feel like during the program, I feel like I'm making an impact with the students, especially using kind of that agreement where you feel like, hey, next time let's update your resume, or those sorts of things. I think what would be cool is kind of like an ongoing outside of their year expectation or however long they are in the program for, how you can support them past that, you know, like I think they could use help, maybe even just post like right when they start their careers or any of that. I know that it would probably look different, but I think having that conversation at the end of it would be valuable.
Yeah, I think that's really great, Brittany. Thank you for sharing. It's kind of like the launching your mentee topic, right? So how to navigate that transition, and then also giving them tools to, you know, navigate. I know a lot of mentees graduated this year, so I'm preparing them for the next transition. Okay, nice. Thank you. That's great. Any other areas or topics that you'd love to see addressed either at, you know, end of fall or in future meetings? Great. Sounds good. We're on time between Travis and I. That's a minor miracle. So thank you all for being here. It was so nice to see your faces, and I really appreciate your insight and your feedback. I know students are going to gain so much from your time and your wisdom. So we really cannot express enough how much of an impact that you have and how appreciative we are of all of your time. So take care. You'll receive a follow-up email from me right after this meeting with your kind of next steps. And then as always, feel free to reach out, and then we'll try to put something on the calendar for the end of fall. Would you prefer a calendar invite? Yes.
Say that again. Would you for what?
A calendar invite rather than an email? Okay.
That's just me.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, perfect. I hesitate to do that, but I think that might be easier, so you all don't have to do that on your own. So I'll send you a calendar invite once we have our coach meeting solidified for the end of fall.
Thanks for everything you do, Mallory.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you.
of
Have
the
a wonderful
summer.
weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Nice meeting you all.
Bye.